Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey Jeff, how you doing?
I am doing fabulous. I'm super excited about today's interview.
Oh, me too.
All right, let's get started. I'd like to introduce the new CEO and Executive Director of the American Podiatric Medical Association, Meghan McClelland. Welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I've been listening to all your podcasts. I'm ready to go.
Oh, that's fantastic. So are we. If it's all right with you, we're pretty informal, Megan, as you know. If you let's go, Megan, Joe, and Jeff.
That sounds great. Thanks.
All right. Well, I want to give you a more formal introduction. So, Megan is an experienced association professional with a background in strategy and operations, legislative advocacy, policy development, strategic planning, governance, membership, finance, IT, human resources, and political action committees. Before joining APMA, Megan was Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Maryland Hospital Association, where she worked for 17 years with some of the leading hospital systems in the country. Megan holds an MBA from the George Washington University School of Business and a Bachelor of Arts from the Arizona State University. She sits on the board of the Maryland Healthcare Educational Institute and is a founding member of Chief Washington, D.C., a network designed specifically for women leaders. In her spare time, Megan enjoys walking, traveling, and spending time with her husband and daughter. Welcome again, Megan.
Great. Thanks. That sounds fancy. I'm not sure I'm that fancy, but thank you for the introduction.
Well, I had to reprint it and increase the font size for my eyes. So,
Dude, we're all getting there.
absolutely. So Megan, first thing I'd like to start on is, how'd you find out about APMA and the position of the CEO, and what have your first few months been like? Because you've been on the job since August now?
Yeah, so I came at the very end of August, and I came about it kind of innocently enough. I was just on my LinkedIn one day and it popped up as one of the things to take a look at. But once I started digging in more, it really excited me. And once I had conversations with the board and the selection committee, I was hooked. I just had an opportunity to be able to work with such a passionate group of people in addition to being able to bring kind of my expertise that I've honed over the last 20 or 25 years. I just thought it was meeting what I could do for the organization at the right time for what I was looking to do next in my career. So it's been exciting. I've hit the ground running. I've had lots of meetings with lots of folks, but I have many more to come. I'm really inviting the field to talk with me about what we need to be doing differently here at APMA, but also what we can be doing to support the field. So it's been really exciting.
Very good. I know you and I have had a couple of conversations, and there's so many podiatrists that behind the scenes, APMA is doing a lot of work, advocacy wise, and leading our profession forward. What areas have you seen that you are high on the front burner list, if you will, going forward?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head with the advocacy side. So we have a lot of great organizations for podiatry, for a relatively small but mighty profession. There's lots of groups that do different things, but what APMA does the best, I think, and differently for podiatrists is really advocacy work. So we're going to be hyper focused on advocacy in the coming years, months, days, as we're trying to establish kind of a new advocacy agenda for us to be able to move things forward. So you'll see work for us, not just on the national stage where we're trying to push for, reforms for payment and other things, but we're also going to be working with our state components really closely to look at how we can create a national plan to help the states move things along, and including things like scope of practice and really trying to make sure where there's states that can change the national agenda, that we're helping them to do that so that we can achieve our aims overall. So advocacy is very much a big priority. And then the second thing I think most important to me right now is just getting kind of APMA. We're assessing what we're doing and figuring out what's working, what's not working, and what we might need to shed so that we can move forward and do the right thing for the folks that we're representing. So we're doing a lot of just kind of analysis of all of our different programs and member values so that we can really be bringing the best forward for the field as we move forward.
Well, that's fabulous. Joe, your thoughts go. immediately.
Yeah, no, it's always so interesting, right? To come into kind of a new, not new industry, because you've been as you said, and as Dr. Jensen had said in the bio, you've been doing a lot of this work in a different capacity, but coming with that framework and as a new and fresh set of eyes on an organization that's been very well established. I'm curious if there have been any common themes or consistent things that you've noticed in some of the analysis, or maybe some of it hasn't really all gotten pieced out yet, but is there any kind of common themes or low-hanging fruit that you see opportunities for our profession?
Yeah, I do think there are some low-hanging fruit in terms of what we could be doing to kind of bring us to the forefront. I think the first thing is really partnering better as organizations. So, as I was saying at the beginning, we have so many different types of organizations that represent podiatrists, and they all have their individual specialties and they're great at what they do. But there are ways we could be leveraging everybody's strengths better for the dollars that we have and the resources. So, where we could partner with our state components, our affiliates, with other podiatric associations, I think it's really important that we are giving our voice to things together and looking at that and not being duplicative of each other's work, but really being complementary of it. So I think that's really easy to start those conversations and partner with people in a different way. It's not always easy to implement immediately, but we're having those conversations and reaching out to people that we might not have reached out to before and just saying, hey, how can we do this differently? So I think to me, that's a big part of it. But I also think just kind of making sure that we are sharing with the membership how we're going to be different, right? So APMA has been around for a long time and we've done lots of great things, but there's some things that we haven't been able to execute as well as we want to on there. And I think part of leadership is kind of owning that and then figuring out how to move forward. And so I think having these conversations with the field of figuring out what maybe hasn't been working and doing it differently is going to be part of that. And so that's kind of the assessment phase we're in now. So that could mean that we have programs that we are, working on right now that don't add a whole lot of value and we'll get rid of them, or something we haven't been doing that would better help the field as the changing environment for podiatry is continuing to evolve. When APMA started in the past, we had a lot of people who were just who were in practice by themselves. Now we have a lot more people in groups. We have a lot more people with hospitals. We have a broader set of people we need to meet the needs for. And so we need to make sure our member value is tying back to that as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's Megan. That's interesting though, the partnering aspect, and there are a lot of different areas in podiatry, but we're all tied together in the same profession. I was just going to do a shout out to a couple of the state components. The Colorado state component has just been wonderful in helping us with student recruitment, the residency programs, the docs. They've been fabulous, and then so has the Florida Podiatric Medical Association. And like you said, there's lots of groups, but gosh, there's common threads there everywhere, and it's so fun to work together and solving the problems, right? If there were no problems, none of us would have jobs, right?
Right. And that's I love that kind of work. I think challenges are opportunities for us to do things differently. And so you and I have been talking a lot just because we were also talking about student recruitment and branding the profession, right? And we have to collectively do that. None of us can do that alone. We might be able to advocate differently as, the advocacy arm, but you all are there with the students every day. And so what needs to be said or done differently to be able to kind of build that out. And so the more that we can partner and figure out how to broaden, who's coming into the schools and then making sure that the profession's strong into the future, man, none of us should be doing that alone. We should be doing that all together.
Yeah, as Stephanie Wu says, it's all hands on deck.
Right, exactly. So I'm excited because everybody seems to be in that same vein. And what I've stolen from one of our board members that I keep repeating is I want to make sure we're putting podiatry first, not APMA, not what other alphabet soup we might want to add at the end of it. If we're all doing the right thing for podiatry, then it will fall into place. And so if that means we do less of something or more of something, that's great. But as long as it gets to the end result, I think that that's where we should be focused. And that will always kind of be our North Star to make sure we're not getting off course in that process.
That's brilliant. That's a soundbite right there, Megan, for sure. So, Joe, I was thinking about shifting gears a little bit and talking
Sure.
about Megan's work history and what kind of led her to this spot. Um, you know what it's like in the heat of summer here in Arizona, having been a Sun Devil. They got a great football team this year too, by the way.
I
Big game
know
this
that.
weekend.
Yeah, well, yeah, always the U of A game, but my husband's from Kansas, so I was very happy when we beat K-State last week for Arizona State. So there was a little house divided for us there, but um, yeah, so I grew up as a military brat. So my father was in the Coast Guard. I moved all the time, about every 2 years or so. The nice part of the Coast Guard is a lot of that was on the water. But I was born in El Paso, Texas, so go figure on that one. But so when I went to college, I actually applied to go to the Coast Guard Academy, and I got an appointment to go there. And then I backup applied to, with ASU too. And then at some point, I realized I wasn't ready to go into the military. I was 18. I was just not the thing I was ready to do yet. So I went to Arizona State because that was my in-state tuition. My dad had never changed his state of residency because back then Arizona didn't have state taxes and military people didn't move their residency for those things. And so I landed at ASU and I loved it there. I really think it's a wonderful organization. I think I was a poli-sci major, so that's kind of the beginning of my advocacy work.
Yeah.
And then trying to like work through all that. I was part of, the student organizations and all the government pieces on that. And then I moved into human resources originally when I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer yet. And mostly because I think people run organizations and that what makes us strong in who we are as we move forward. So my career started in human resources, but pretty quickly in healthcare in that. And then I eventually went back and got my MBA from George Washington University because I saw the intersection of people and business was really needed for association work because a lot of associations have really big hearts and missions, but they don't always know how to execute on that in a way that's the best use of members' time and dollars. And so I got my MBA there and then applied that in my role at the Maryland Hospital Association for the last 17 years. And now bringing that all to APMA, in addition to getting more, advocacy background and running PACs and all that good stuff to make sure that we have the resources we need to be able to advocate for what we need to for the field.
That's fabulous, Joe.
Yeah, and I think it's also such a unique opportunity to merge areas of your particular strength, starting in something like HR and having the baseline foundation of communication skills, interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence. How do we, as you already had mentioned, how do we unify some of these divisions maybe that are making things harder to move forward? How can we bridge those gaps, but do it in a way that is as fair and equitable and reasonable as we can? And I think having that as something that was the start of your career is really a unique perspective. And so I'm actually really excited to see where this all goes. And I think there's so much potential in our profession, and we're obviously very passionate about it since Jeff and I sit for a couple hours every week and talk about it. But it's wonderful to hear other people's passion that, again, I can see it and hear it from you as you're talking. And this is relatively new for you. And so it's also nice to have that fresh perspective. What do you think are some of the most exciting opportunities for us in podiatry?
Yeah, so I think this idea of branding our profession and really getting out in front of how we are seen. My favorite story I'm telling recently is when I got this position, my father said, "Oh, that's great. My favorite doctor is my podiatrist." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." And so we started down a conversation and just how his understanding of the field and what it's like because he had interacted with podiatrists versus other people when I started the shop who were like, "Are you working for the pediatric?" So and you've got so I think we have a ways to be able to go to be able to make sure the public truly understands the amazing work that you all are doing. And I think we have to take that from a public perception, and that will take us internally figuring out how we want to talk about ourselves. And it might mean that we have to talk a certain way about ourselves to the public so they understand it, and then a different way about ourselves to regulators so that we can get fair payment. And so I think we're going to be engaging in those conversations with the profession to say, here's the need for each one of these groups to understand us differently. So how can we talk about ourselves? And if people are okay with wearing those different hats, I think we have an opportunity to be really successful in that process. So I think that's really exciting as we're coming forward. And I think if we have opportunities to continue to look at, our membership, you have less people in school. The states have less people coming to the states. We have less people. And so if we can find ways to really engage our membership in ways that can help them, I think it's going to be amazing. So we've talked to, different segments. We have young professionals that we need to bring into the field and bring into the advocacy work we're doing. We have people who have been doing this work for a very long time, but we need to keep that pipeline going. So how do we really figure out how to engage young professionals when they're trying to start their careers and set up practices and develop that, while at the same time needing them to give their insights to how we need to change or look at the field or advocate for the field as we go forward. So I'm really proud of our Emerging Leaders program that we've set up here. And I think we need to find more ways to really engage the young folks to make sure we're hearing what they need to, as well as what our podiatrists who have all brought us to this dance right together. So figuring out how we're doing that together, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's exciting.
That is a lot of fun. And the branding effort you're referencing has a ripple effect that affects every podiatrist, every school, every component, every state, across the board. So I think that's a good idea too. I have a question for you, Meghan. It's easy to have ideas and it's easy to put it on paper. And you touched on it before, the execution component. When your leadership roles in the past, what is the answer to execution? Because that always seems to be the limiting step to really making something happen.
Well, I'm going to use a quote from one of my mentors that it starts, I always say transparency breeds self-correcting behavior. And what that means is being transparent and accountable is going to allow us to execute, because then we have to say, here's what our plans are. Here's how we plan to do that. And so, for example, this advocacy framework we're creating for 2025, we're looking at things a little differently, but we're going to have quarterly objectives that we're going to set out to say, here's what we're going to do to move these forward. And everything doesn't always pan out the way you want it to. But if we can execute on 80% of that, the field will see the difference. We will see different outcomes. And so to me, it's just the mindful laying out of like what quarter by quarter will move it. Because sometimes if you try to, eat the elephant all at once, you don't do anything. It gets overwhelming. And so we're going to take it bite by bite and break it down and do that for our advocacy agenda, do that for our membership campaigns, do that for how we're providing member value for folks. And so that people will know tangibly at the end of a year, hey, here's the things APMA did for us, and find out ways to quantify that for them. We do tons of great advocacy work that puts dollars back into podiatrists' pockets, but we're really bad at telling people about it and really bad at explaining to people that without kind of this element of the field to help do that, we would be fighting a lot more money battles than what we're currently doing. So I think just being able to, lay out, be transparent, be accountable, and lay out kind of our goals and then report on that regularly back to the field and to our board. I think that's how you make sure you're moving forward. And then when the hiccups come, they will, at least you're able to explain, okay, this is a hiccup, but this other stuff's still moving forward and we're executing in these areas.
Well said. In fact, we're already seeing a little bit of that. I got a couple of emails today from APMA on advocacy fronts. So I was driving, so I couldn't act upon them yet. But, that's awesome. And I commend you for moving that along this early. Thank you.
Yeah. We're looking at some options with a class action lawsuit on some of the modifier codes. So really seeing if we can get the field together, that would be huge if we could get the insurers to really think differently about the modifiers and how they're using that. So yeah, we have a lot of things that are in the hopper. We're going to be creating advocacy champions. With Brad Wenstrup leaving Congress, we need more podiatric advocacy champions on the Hill. And so we're going to have a detailed plan on how we want to do that, including if you know anybody who's a podiatrist that wants to run for Congress, we're ready to support a podiatrist back in Congress. So, but really looking for how we can have those champions that are there to help us with what we need to get through in the next several years.
Well, we could put Lauren Worster up to the task.
You're right. You're right. Lauren's amazing.
Oh, she is, and she's local. She's in Arizona. She's incredible. I love working with her.
Yeah, she's
We
really
just nominated her. There you go.
Lauren, if you're
FYI,
listening,
Lauren, we just put you on the ballot.
That is so fun. So I have another question for you, Meghan. There's always discussion about leadership styles or traits, and some of it overlaps the discussion we just had on execution. But could you kind of condense your leadership style for the listeners?
Sure. So I do think that transparency is really part of my leadership style. I don't think there's times where, of course, things have to be confidential, but most of the time we are opaque and there's no need for it. If we were just more open, brought more brains into the conversation earlier, we would have better outcomes. So you'll see a lot more of that transparency in the process, because I need the field and the profession to agree with what we're doing. And if we are not doing it the way they want to, that does not serve us very well either. So we're going to have to really be transparent and listen to folks and see what we can do to move things forward. But I do think maybe part of being the military brat side of things, I really am a servant leader. It's about the mission for me. It's about the people. And so anywhere where I can feel we are advancing the good work that you all are doing, we're going to be doing that. So we have real white hat things that podiatrists do, in their communities, and we haven't been sharing that well enough. We need to be going on up to Capitol Hill and arguing for reimbursement, but we also have to have them understand the care you're providing in your communities, not only from surgery, but to diabetic wound care, whatever the things you all are doing. It's stopping amputations. Like, these are huge things that I don't think the public or even our legislators have a good enough grip on. And so we're going to do a lot of servant leadership of making sure it's about podiatry and not about the organization or even me, myself. I'm just a conduit to make sure we're doing that. And so I think through all that, I'm also, as I said, pretty good at executing. That is where I go. But we also still have a lot of fun. I mean, there is really no reason not to laugh and enjoy ourselves in this process. And so where we can bring community and camaraderie, that's important to me, because this is a tight community. It's baffling to me how much time podiatrists give to supporting their profession. I've been in healthcare for 25 years. And I've dealt with people at all levels in healthcare, and I've never seen a group of doctors give this much time to try to help their profession. So I want to make sure we're being a good steward of that time, and that we're using people at the highest, top of license thinking, so that we can go out and execute, because it really is remarkable, the dedication of the field. And I want to make sure that we live up to that dedication.
That's fabulous. Joe, your thoughts on that? Because I know we talk about the contribution to the podiatrists to our field all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it really is exciting and inspiring to hear you kind of comment on some of the things that I think there has been a big portion of the community that has been a little soured, isn't the right word, but it's the only one that's coming to mind. And in that opportunity of bringing the profession together, unifying kind of who we are, what we stand for, like you said, the work that we're doing, again, ultimately with the main vision being to improve the profession, which then improves patient care, quality of care, and there's continues to have nothing but optimistic growth. Again, I think that that's a really exciting opportunity right now, and I will only use I language now. I have not personally felt that way in the past with some of the things from the APMA. So I'm really excited, even just having this conversation. And again, full disclosure, Lauren has been pecking away at me, and it's been working because she's outstanding. And then you start to realize how many outstanding people there really are that are really focused on this common goal. And so being a part of the solution, I think is something that all of us want, but people don't always know what or how to get involved. So I guess that might kind of transition me to my next question for you. What are some of the things for some of the people listening, maybe that, wow, I'm really excited. I want to do something to get involved. I can't commit like a giant time commitment. What are some various ways members can help?
So I would say start with your state components too, because we're only as strong as our state components and all of us working together. In some ways that you can help both your state and for APMA is that we have these different positions within the state that help bring back information for us from an advocacy standpoint. So we have our groups that look at medical insurance issues related to commercial insurers and Medicaid and Medicare. We have representatives from every state that come in and meet with us and talk to us about those issues. So that's one way you can get involved. You can get with your state and get on their CAC or PIAC meeting group list. We also need to be more active from an advocacy perspective. And so I, this last weekend, spent a wonderful couple days with the APMA PAC board to start to look at our strategic plan and how we can politically give differently. But that starts with doing that political fundraising within our own states and bringing that back. So there's individuals who run those activities for the PAC in each state. So if you're politically motivated and that's something that interests you, that might be something that you might want to get involved with. And then we have many committees that work on a lot of different things in terms of research, education, population health, public health, DEI. So if you have an interest, please reach out to me directly or anybody on our team. I'm M. McClelland at apma.org. There's 100 ways we can get you involved, and we really want to hear your voice so that we can make sure we're not just representing the loudest small part of the profession, but really the full part of the profession. And to those who might not be able to engage as much because they have all this other light stuff going on, we'll find ways to engage and get you interested in the work. So
that's fantastic. Can I ask another question, Jeff, before it is a transition, if that's okay. You had just mentioned things like DEI, and I had seen in your bio that you've also been doing a lot of work with women's leadership. And can you talk a little bit about Chief and some of the other things that you're involved with?
Yeah, so I'm really passionate about women leadership in the workforce. And so Chief is a group that formed about 5-6 years ago. And it was about advancing women in the C-suites and getting them together. So it really brings a group of women together. You have coaches, you meet with each other on a monthly basis, and we talk about the things that women go through as you're becoming leaders that might be different than what men go through, and really become a support network for one another and have some guided conversations. It was really, really extremely helpful for me over the last 6 years to have a group of women to talk to. And oftentimes, if you think about it, even with our leaders, women leaders in podiatry, you're the CEO of your own practice, you're running your own organizations. It can get lonely at the top, right? And you can't let all the people around you, you can't emote that to your entire team. That's not a good leadership style. So having a group of women that are in similar situations, and we were all from different industries, getting together and really supporting one another was just a really awesome way that we were able to do that. And so when Chief expanded here in Washington, DC, I became one of the founding members for that here. And then I also do work for healthcare leadership in Maryland. I sit on that board, and that's really about organizational leadership too. So I have a real, my human resources side of me really still plays out, because ultimately it's about creating opportunities for a lot of people. And as I'm coming into podiatry and seeing the number of women that have come in, that are coming into the schools, and that are the podiatrists, and the more diverse group we have that are coming in, these are going to be things that we got to think about differently and engage, because there's different challenges that each of those groups face or opportunities they face. And so as a field, we need to be supportive of that. So I'm hoping some of my background in that will be helpful, but I think it's really good to create these communities. And there's lots of different ways. It's not just women or whatever. We can create these communities of folks that people feel connected to us, not just because we advocate, but because it is a place to come and have a community with one another.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That is fabulous. I was going to do a shout out to a woman leader, Janet Simon from New Mexico.
Yes. Janet is amazing. If Janet doesn't have 87 jobs, I mean, that woman, and all for the benefit of, podiatry and doing the right stuff. She's, she is inspiring. I saw her the last week because she was here for CAC PIAC. She was here for the APMA PAC board. She was on a panel for our board last week to share what the state components were doing. Janet is a rock star. It's lovely to work with her.
She is a rock star. In fact, we're recruiting her to help us with feet on the street student recruitment in New Mexico and Albuquerque.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
She's just such a wonderful leader and represents all great things about podiatry.
Yeah, she really, she walks the walk, I mean, she's there and she does what she needs to do to help move us forward. So it's wonderful.
I have a question for you. So, people pay membership dues, and then we also have PAC dollars for advocacy. Sometimes membership comes to me and they're like, hey, should I be a member of APMA, or should I give money to the PAC? It's one or the other, but it needs to be both, right? Do you mind commenting on that?
Yeah, and a lot of this has to do with kind of the rules, and how PACs have to operate. So those dollars have to be kept completely separate from the membership dollars. So APMA's membership dues allow us to write all the comment letters, go up on the Hill and testify, be the lobbying arm, create the education, all those pieces. What the PAC does is really help you with access, right? And so we are going to be looking at creating more events where we know that somebody could be helpful for us. We want to make sure we're there doing a big event for them. And it might be partnering with the state they come from and going to that state and bringing all the podiatrists that work in that state to an event with us so that we can do that. So yeah, because of the way the rules are with the PAC, and I know sometimes people are like, PACs are like a 4-letter word to them, and they, but it is just the nature of our political system at this point. And when you don't have those dollars to spend, it just kind of hurts us in that process. So yeah, I really do encourage you. You get a really cool pin like this if you give to the PAC, to try to be able to do both. And even if you can't do a lot, just having everybody understand it's part of kind of our way to move the profession forward is just really helpful.
I like how you use the term access. Maybe it needs to be political access committee because, it's action, but it is, you're right. I mean, follow the money usually.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people are willing to meet with you more often.
Absolutely. Well, and relationships drive everything, right? As you've mentioned, when I lived in Florida, we were trying to write grants and get approval by the state, and they would have line item vetoes year after year. The one year we went to the Capitol and we met with the congressman, guess what? We got all the funding we wanted. So everything's relationship driven.
People want to help their friends, right? It's just a natural community you build. And if my friend comes and asks me to do something, and if I can help them, I want to do that. And so it is not, and it's not just about the political dollars, it's about creating these relationships. And so we're going to be asking all of you to let us know when you have connections to the people that sit on our committees. They all come from your states, right? So if we know that certain people, that's helpful for us. And then maybe we can help you do things to help them and vice versa. And so I think it's just understanding that interconnectedness so that when myself or Ben Wallner, who helps us with our advocacy, walk into these people's office, they kind of know us more than just, hey, APMA's here. It's like, hey, you're my friend. I see you at events. I know you, and you're connected to my people back home because they want to help their folks back in their states.
Absolutely. Exciting times at APMA, Joe.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. Exciting times for our profession too, because and not to blame or do any of that, but there is so much that does revolve around the leadership. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I think getting back to what you said, Joe, on the unity side of things, we have to all be together on this. There is nobody I'm not talking to, because we should be partnering with everybody the way that we need to get this done. And it's too important for us to not do that at this juncture, right? So anything we can do to help the profession and move forward, we will be willing partners at the table for that.
Awesome.
That's fabulous. So Meghan, you know, baptism by fire, you jumped into the deep end of the pool. What do you do when you're not thinking about podiatric medicine these days?
Well, I'm thinking about podiatric medicine a whole heck of a lot these days. My family might be questioning how much I'm spending on pediatric medicine. But yeah, no, I really enjoy traveling. I have my husband and our 14-year-old daughter who's almost 15. So she just started high school. So she plays soccer. We go to a lot of soccer tournaments, and move around on that type of stuff. And then you know, we have our 2 pups. We like to go camping. If we can get out and about, we're pretty much out and about people. My husband's from Northwest Kansas. So sometimes I need to get him to the country so he can feel a little bit more rooted. So yeah, we really just like to travel.
You know, I used to work in the OR with some folks from Kansas, and I couldn't go in there without them saying "Rock, Shock, Jayhawk," right? Is that what they say?
Yeah, so there's the Jayhawks and K-State. My husband's family, a lot of them are Jayhawks and a lot of them are K-State. So they fight about it all the time, just like us in Arizona with our Arizona State and U of A. So
Oh, that's fabulous. So what kind of dogs do you have?
they're an interesting breed. My husband, he does bird hunting. He's a bird hunter, and so they're called a poodle pointer. They're a German breed.
Oh,
They look like a lab with a beard. They have like a shaggy beard, but they're known for pointing birds, retrieving birds, that kind of stuff. But what I say is they spend 95% of their time on my couch wanting to be pets.
there's that bird hunting utility, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
They have potential.
Mom pet me more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
potential.
Absolutely, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Meghan, is there anything else you'd like to share with?
I have a question.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry, Joe.
So when you were talking about travel, sorry, Jeff, favorite place that you've traveled and favorite thing you've eaten?
Ooh, those are really, that might be the hardest question you guys just asked.
I know.
Because people ask me about where my favorite place to live, because I live so many places, and I really go back to the people most of the time because I love the people everywhere I live. So that made each place good. We went to Costa Rica for my cousin's wedding about a decade ago, which was amazing. That was lovely. And maybe most recently, we were able to go to France and go see the Christmas markets on the border of France and Germany. They're like the oldest Christmas markets in the world. So that was kind of neat.
Oh, that's really cool.
Food wise, I love it all. I don't even know if I could pick. I mean, the baguettes in France were pretty good. I'm always a cheese and bread girl at the end of the day, probably to my detriment, but they were pretty good. So, but I need to make it to Italy because I got to eat my way through Italy at some point.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Fantastic. Meghan, I've got a bunch of other questions, but you know what? We're running a little short on time, and it gives us an excuse to have you back on Dean's Chat for another episode.
Do an update.
That would be lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great. We have so much good work to do together. So I just really encourage folks to reach out. I am okay hearing the bad news. You know, it's fine. We can't get better unless we know what we need to do to change. So good, bad, ugly, bring it to us. We will work together and find a solution to do the right thing for podiatry. So I'm just really thankful for you guys letting me come in and chat with you for a little bit. And I'd love to come back anytime you want to have me back.
That is fabulous. Thank you so much. You know, Meghan, it's kind of a tradition. All of our guests get a cup. We get a Dean's Chat cup sent your way. May have to send 2 of them, one for home, one for work.
That would be awesome. And I will take my picture and proudly post it on social media to share your podcast with the world. So
It's awesome. You know, it's so funny you mentioned that because when we first started sending them out, I think it was John Steinberg. He took his cup to the OR with him and he took a picture in the OR, and you know, I thought it was fabulous. But that's great.
So I might need to take mine to Capitol Hill and like try to one up him or something.
Now you're talking. Megan, also, we'd love to give you an invitation to come and visit our college. The Arizona College is beautiful. We're at Midwestern University, but you don't want to come like between June 15th and September 15th, as you know.
I remember those days. But yes, I will love to come out. I love Arizona. I need to come out for a football game soon or something in the realm of the ASU world. So yes, Ed, I'd love to see you all too. So that'd be great.
Awesome.
That's fabulous. Thank you again for joining us. And to all of our listeners out there, if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we'd love to get a 5-star rating. And if you get a chance, leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. And until next week, cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.